The government is pushing a new health bill that critics say pushes the nanny state agenda even further. And one provision under the bill requires physicians to measure the body mass index. It's called the BMI. You'll hear a lot about that, of school-age kids, and make a note of it in children's vaccination records. Those are the things that don't go away. So is this too much, Big Brother? And could this be a trigger for rationing that critics fear will happen when Obamacare takes effect? Here to help us sort it all out is Fox News medical contributors Cynara Coomer and celebrity nutritionist and author of Skinny Chicks Don't Eat Salads. And again, Coulter would appreciate that as well. Christine Avanti, good to see you both here. So what do you think of this bill?
I think it's a terrible idea.
Why?
Well, first of all, this is a classic example of why politicians should not get involved with health care reform, because what they're basically doing is taking one concept that somebody has latched onto, mostly from pop media, but also from some pediatricians that report it and use it, but they use it in a very different way than what's being proposed in this health care bill. And then they're taking this information and applying it to people, and it's going to cause them to get discriminated against by insurance companies. Why is this such a bad use of BMI?
And you say discriminated against because they'll have this on their permanent record that they're permanent fat people.
And this is one spot that they're going to use on their school vaccination records. The BMI is a very poor index to follow for obesity.
Christine?
You know, I'm a little bit in the middle here with this. I think that it's really important for people to know that they're in a risk with their health as far as BMI. I think it's a great indicator to let children know, or people know, that, hey, you're in an obese range here that puts you more at risk for cancer, diabetes,
but not on their
heart
records,
disease.
not on a permanent vaccination record.
Perhaps. I just like the idea of the doctor being able to tell the child, hey, you are at a risk right here for these diseases. Now, the fact that it's being written on a record and might stop them from being able to obtain health insurance, obviously that's not a good thing. I think we need to educate these kids. I think a doctor speaking to them as opposed to their parents is a good way to start, because that's coming from a different source. It's coming from an authority that the children cannot, they're not going to feel offended. They're going to feel like,
and you mentioned the word authority. In this environment, Dr. Coomer, when people think that the government's authority has gone way too far, and they want information not just for the general good, but so that they can control things when, if God forbid, we do have rationing of some kind, that's what people's fears are about.
That's what it's, and they should be fearful of that. And what they're going to do is they're going to use one value at one particular point of time. How pediatricians actually use this BMI index is that they chart it. So they take a child's BMI at one age, then the child comes back a year later, they measure it again, and they chart it, and they fit kids in percentile rankings.
Is it good to have that just for personal records? I mean,
it is good to have.
It's not good for the government to have any of these records.
It's good to have it for personal records, but sometimes their BMIs will jump up really high because all of a sudden they go through a growth spurt, and then it's for the physician and the parents and the patient. It's for the physician to look at this child and say, is this really an obesity issue or not?
It's a personal decision. A personal decision.
I think that, I have to say, I really do think that everyone should have their BMI tested just as much as blood pressure.
I don't think I ever have, by the way.
Triglycerides. Well, the problem is we have 1 out of 3 children in this country who are obese. The first time in our nation's history that these children are not going to outlive their parents. I mean, according to statistics. That concerns me. What I want to do is I want to educate people, specifically children, on how to eat healthier. I want the red alarm to go off if they're in a zone where they're obese.
But you want it. The question is whether the parents and the individuals want it. I mean, the desire has to come from the individuals being lectured to, right?
But something has to be done about this obesity epidemic, and clearly the parents and kids are not handling it well on their own right now.
Do you think there is an obesity epidemic? There
is a huge obesity epidemic. 1 in 3 children are now being diagnosed as being overweight, and we do need to address it. I absolutely agree with Christine on this, but this, again, is an issue that should be dealt with on the physician and patient level, and not dealt with the government getting involved and saying, oh, this child is high risk
but if the government has the purse strings of our health insurance agencies, they're going to have to say, hey, it's in our interest to force people to do what we want them to do.
Right, and this is where they're going to start potentially causing some discrimination in insurance, because the child's going to be deemed high risk when maybe they're not, just based on one value.
Cynara Coomer, Christine Avanti, author of Skinny Chicks Don't Eat Salads. Good to see you both. Thanks. And you're coming out with a book soon, I hope.
Yes, of course.
All right. And last chance to vote. Time to declare war on Al-Qaeda.